Okay, good Erev Shabbos to all. We're up to Yud Ches Amid Beis, right when the lines get wide, about 5, 6 lines down. Okay, we're digressing a little bit. We're discussing the Mechusa Begodim, so we're going to discuss a little bit about the Big Day Kahuna. So Tana Rabbanan, we say Michlasei Bad Yiyah B'Sarai. So bad, what is bad? A few pshatim. Bad shehi butz. It should be butz, which is linen. Bad sheyu chadoshim. It should be the clothing should be new. Bad shehi shizurim. They should be woven like twisted. Bad shehi chutin kafel shisha. That they should be 6. So bad shel yilbush shel chol imahem. That you shouldn't go ahead and wear any chol with them. There's a good kasha, but I didn't get a teretz. Of course, you can't wear other begadim with the big day kahuna. It has to be a sarai. It can be a chatzitza. So what do you need a lima to tell me that they can't wear big day chayil with it? So I saw the kasha. I didn't get a teretz. Anyway, but Amalei Abayla B'Yosef Bishleim Shel Butz. Very good. That bad we know it should be linen. Hakamash B'Lan Butz in Midiachrin Lo. That there's no other material that can be used for the big day kahuna. Elabad Shi Chadashim. Chadashim in shchakim loy mashma. Only new garments are kasha for big day kahuna. Batanya we saw yesterday. Mishuchakim if they are worn ksherim. So yesterday if they're worn they're kasha. So what do you mean they have to be new? So Amalei. So Rabbi Yosef said to Abaya, "Well, Taimech, according to your ways of thinking, bad sheichut kafel shisha." That the chutin should be twined 6. Bad chad l'chudei mashma. It's not twined 6. Bad is lashon like livad, guys. Livad is mashma alone, and you tell me it's 6. So it says Rabbi Yosef to Abaya. Obviously, you can't be taking this literally because bad can mean twisted 6, but yet, and what does that mean? El hachi kamar begodim shenemar behen bad. The begodim that they say regarding when they should be made of linen. Tzrichim sheyu shel butz. They should be what? When the Godim, they said about should be butz. Chadashim, they should be new. Shizurin, they should be twisted. Shehechut kafel shisha, and the twist should be of linen that is strands of 6. Okay? So therefore, in other words, guys, it's not a limud, fellas. Bad bump, bad bump, bad bump, bad bump. It's bad. Regarding the badim, it should be linen. It should be new. It should be shizurin, and it should be 6 strands, right? That's what. And now, yesh men mitzvah. There are those that are a mitzvah, v'yesh men la'akim, and there are those that are ma'akim. In other words, there's in the 4 halachas we just mentioned, right? Some are if you don't have them that way, then it's no good. Others, if you don't have them the way, it is good, but you didn't do the mitzvah min hamufchar. You didn't do it the best way. So, memai dahai bad kisna. So let's say that it should be made of linen, that's a non-starter. It has to be. That it should be shizurin. That it should be shizurin also is a non-starter. That it's worn, that it's worn and not new, that it's not new, that's not ma'akiv. Right? So in other words, you had a kasha, what's your kasha? It doesn't have to be new because you see worn works. So in other words, lichatchila, it should be new. If it's not, it works. However, it's got to be a linen, and it has to be shizurin with 6 strands. Okay. Bad bebad, bad is kisnahu. Rav Yosef Reb Chanina, davar ha'olim in akarka bad bebad. How do you know it's linen? Because I guess I'm not a farmer, but if you see flax growing, it grows up in separate stalks. So bad means like livad. Ema imra, right? Let's say it is wool. Because on the sheep, it grows out. I guess again, I'm not a farmer, but it grows out bad bebad. The tufts are bad bebad, and for the Gemara, imra miftzol. Imra, it goes ahead wad and separates. So since it separates, it goes from different strands. It's not considered one. For the Gemara, kisma nami miftzol. Linen also separates, so it's also not one. And for the Gemara, al yidei lekusim miftzol. But linen, how does it separate? When you go ahead and you refine it, you hit it. When you start hitting it and processing it, that's when it separates. But until then, what it is, it's bad, it's alone. Ravina amame hacha. I have a pasuk to tell me that the big day kahuna should be made of linen. It's a quote from a pasuk in Yecheskel. Koyamar Hashem Elokim, Pare pishtim yiyu al roisham like little crowns or hats of linen should be on their heads. And on the legs and the loins should be pishtim lo yakru bayoza. They should not be yakru. They shouldn't be chogar bayoza. We'll see what that means in a second. So what do you see? You see that what? It's speaking, it says pare pishtim, and it says michlasayim pishtim. So they'll see that of the Furish pasuk in Yecheskel that the bigdei kahuna are linen. You're not from the word bad, which is a little more obscure, that you had to learn it out. That oil bad bebad, but it says mafurish a pasuk in Yecheskel that was made of linen. That's where Ravina learned it from, right? Amalei Rav Ashla Ravina, but adas Yecheskel min nalan. I mean, obviously, Cheskel was well after the canon of being Isaac in the base of Migdash. So how do you know until then? So it's the Gemara Taimech. Ravina says to Rav Ashi, Hadam Rav Chisda, Davazem Mitoris Moshe Rabbeinu Loy Lamadnu, Midivrei Cheskel Ben Buzi Lamadnu, Kol Ben Necha Oral Leiv V'Oral Basa Lo Yavi Al Migdashi. Right? It said that anyone who is a Ben Necha is a mummer, and shouldn't go ahead except or an oral should not go ahead and work in the base of Migdash or even bring a carbon. They shouldn't bring a carbon. What do you have to say? Gemara Gemirila, we had a Messiah. Cheskel, and Cheskel came, and he found a smach for it. Hachanami regarding the linen, Gemara Gemirila, a Messiah that the big linen, and then came Cheskel and found the smach in the bus. And then we found the smach from Cheskel. Now the pasuk concluded lo yakru bayaza. What does it mean bayaza? Rabbi lo yakru b'makam shemaziyim. You shouldn't go ahead and tie the belt in a place that's sweaty. Rashi says that it's the place where the meat a person is covered up. Where like, no, thank you very much. My very cute granddaughter saw my throat was going. Say hello. Okay. Okay, so you can't tie the belt in a makam bayaza, a makam of sweat, right? Look at Rashi. Rashi says, "B'makam shamaziyim, b'makam shabasa nichbal alabasa u'mischamei umaziyah." A place where people were, I guess, corpulent, where it was one top of the other and it was cold. Okay, when what? Kidatanya kashem chaygrin, when they would tie their belts, in chaygrim loy lamatim masneim, not below their loins, loy lamatim atzileim, not above their. They wouldn't tie it up to here, not above their elbows, right? Ella Amid Aleph, Ella, where would they tie it? Kineged atzile yedehem. So let's say you're standing, right? Like think about they would tie it kind of over here, a little higher, because if you connected your not where we tie our belts, be higher up, connected wherever your elbows are. Amar Rashi, Amali Huna by Nasin, says Rav Huna by Nasin, Zimnacha, the one time I became the Kameid is Gedar, that's his name, is Gedar Malka. He was a Persian king. So he said one time I was standing in front of him, and he lifted up my belt. And I guess he lowered it. To a certain spot. And I guess I was wearing it too high, and he lowered it. V'amali, and the Melech said to me, "Mimamleches kahanim v'goy kodesh ksiv b'chu." Right? Now that seems to be the proper place to wear it, and you are a mamleches kahanim, and it says by you lo yakru biyaza. You shouldn't go wear it in a sweaty place. So I guess I don't know. He must have lifted it up. Kiyasel kameda meimar amalia kaimbach was fulfilled in you. The king's going to be your omenayach. They're going to be people your attendants, right? So you see that you would be intended to by this king. He straightened your belt. Okay, a little maisa. San Hassam. Koyin shelaka betzboy, a koyin that he got hit in his hand. He had a boo-boo. Gemi, some type of that wasn't a band-aid, but some type of material. But you're able to go ahead and do it in Migdash. Avoid bin Medina. You can go ahead and tie it in the Migdash and not in the Medina. Again, refuah is also on Shabbos. Gezer mishum shkika samimonim. You may come to go ahead and crush some spices. but ain't shvus b'migdash. So in the base of Migdash, where you had this, it seems the gemi would not be permitted in the outside the base of Migdash because of a rufu b'Shabbos. But in the base of Migdash, there's no shvus. In Migdash, it's okay. If the reason for putting it on was to get the dam out, that kan v'kan even in the base of Migdash would be asa. Amrav Yehuda Braid Rav Chia, Lo Shanu El Gemi. The only thing you can put on is gemi. Aval silsil cotton, a little belt, some type of little belt. Have a yita begodim. That would be considered a fifth beged. If you're a kohen gadol, a kohen, not kohen gadol, a regular kohen four, and you put on this the silsil cotton, it would be considered another beged. Again, yita begodim, fellas. If you're listening to this, they share. The long beged, the reason why it's possible is that extra material is considered yita begodim. It's supposed, that's what Rashi learned. It's supposed to be exactly the dimensions of the individual. Anything that anything that was extra wasn't shot that it was dragging on the ground. It wasn't covered there. Rashi learned it was yita begodim. It was extra beged. So now it makes a lot of sense. This thing also would be considered an extra beged. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Lo yomer yita begodim el b'makom begodim." We only said yita begodim in a place where you wear it. But let's say you have a boob on your finger, that you're going to put a tziltzal on your finger. It's not considered a beged because that's not a makom of a beged. It's not a place where you wear something. So therefore, that would not be considered a beged. But if it's shloi b'makom, lo have a yita. So again, says Rabbi Yochanan, right, that silsil cotton is not a problem. Why? Because it's not in the place where you wear a beged. That's important. Fred the Gemara of Tepile Mishum Chatzitza. This is the question that Heshi was bothered with by Aaron with the pearls in his beard. Let's say it's a chatzitza by big day get. It has to be a basaroi, and so let's say, how could he have a gemi on his hand? It's going to be a chatzitza. Inami shalei b'makom. So one teretz says Gemara bismoil. Either it's on his left hand. Inami shalei b'makom avoida. It's on the top of his hand. It's not a place where he has to do the avoida. Upligi Rava. Rabbi Yochanan says who that silsil cotton would be asar. No, that at silsil cotton would be okay. Shalei b'makom the beged is arguing with Rava. Dama Rava Rav Chisda b'makom begodim afilu nima achas chaytzetzes. All right. If it's in the place of the beg of where you wear your clothing, even a hair would be a chatzitza. Shalei b'makom begodim shalosh al shalosh. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, guys, no matter what size it was, the tzilzal didn't make a difference. It was not a problem. You said it's a problem of Yita Begodim. He says once it was not a place of Yita Begodim, it was not a problem. It was not a problem. Says Rava, it is a problem if it's shalosh al shalosh. Okay, guys, remember what I teach you? Shalosh shows what? Tell me what it is. Shalosh shows what? Tfachim? Good, David. It's boys. How do you know it's boys? Not because you looked at the hot scroll. It's boys. Why? Because shalosh. Remember, when it's Hebrew, when it's zachar, it's always going to be nekeva. If it's shloisha, it's tfachim. If it's shalosh, it's going to be either amos or it's boys. And this guy amos is very big. It's going to be what? It's boys. Very good. Chetzetzes. So that would be pachs mikan less than this ain't a chetzetzes. So Ad Rabbi Yochanan Vade Pligi. Rabbi Yochanan said, right, that anything that's shaloi b'makom begodim is not a problem. According to Rav, it depends upon size. However, Ad Rabbi Yehuda Braid Rav Chia, who said silsul cotton not mi lema the Pligi. Rashi says the iu amat silsul cotton chaytzitz. Rav says pachas mishalish lo chaytzitz. So the question is he arguing? Now, as Rav said, less. So Rabbi Yehuda said silsil cotton is a chatzitza. Rabbi said 3 and 3 is less than that. Not is he arguing? He says no, it could be shiny silsil cotton the choshev. But even Rava would say since it's a silsil cotton is a davar choshev, he might be moided to Rabbi Yehuda that even though it's less than shalosh, it would be a problem. That's the first lashon. So in the first lashon, Rabbi Yochanan is going to mat the chatzitza anything that's not shaloi b'makom begodim. Second lashon. Lishnachri nemila. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Reb Chia lo shanu ela gemi. You can go ahead. Lo shanu, what we said is gemi. Aval silsil cotton, but a small cotton chaytzitz. Okay, so that is exactly what Rabbi Yehuda Reb Chia said. He didn't change. Now, Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Le'omer chatzitza b'pachas mishalosh shalosh. Now this is different. Rabbi Yochanan in his first lashon said what? As long as shloi b'makom begadim, anything goes. Now he's given dimensions like Rava. He's given the 3 by 3 etzbois by 3 etzbois. B'makom begadim, av shloi b'makom begadim shalosh chetzetzes pachas mikan and chetzetzes v'hainu de Rava, and that's Rava. So again, in the first lashon, he says shloi b'makom begadim, everything's okay. In the second lashon, if it's shalosh b'shalosh, anything above that is not okay. Below that is okay. Right? Amar Rav Chisda lema pligi ad Rav Yehuda breder Rav Chia, who says that silsil cotton, which is less than that, is also not okay. So let's say Rabbi Yochanan said that less than shalosh al shalosh is okay, would disagree with Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Chia, who says less than, it's silsil cotton is less than 3 by 3, and he also says chatzitza. So let's say he argues on that. The Gemara says shiny silsil cotton the chashiv, and Rabbi Yochanan would go ahead and be moided to that. Good. Fred the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan, my area gemi lashmin and silsil cotton. Okay, now you're telling me that Rabbi Yochanan that says a filu at silsil is not a chatzitza. Again, it could be that he holds that maybe. I guess that not Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Chia holds that. In other words, Ken Zayin Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Chia agree. The reason why Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Chia said at silsil cotton is because it's a davar chashiv. Rabbi Yochanan, on the other hand, would hold that silsil cotton also won't be a problem. Now, Fred the Gemara, a big chiddush then. So why did you just tell me the halacha by a gemi that Rabbi Yochanan would hold even at silsil cotton, a small kind of belt, is okay? Why did you limit it to a gemi? As I Fred the Gemara. Right. Says the Gemara. Well, Rabbi Yochanan, my ear yanami a gemi, the shmin and silsil cotton. It's a bigger chiddush. After the Gemara, this is a chiddush in gemi. What's the chiddush in gemi? The gemi masa. That gemi goes ahead wide, and the gemi is a masa. It's refuah, and nonetheless, even though it's refuah, since the migdash, there's no shvus b'migdash, that's the chiddush. In other words, the gemi wouldn't be allowed outside the base of migdash because it's refuah is allowed. So einachinami, in terms of size, there's a bigger chiddush to tell me that a silsil is not a chatzitza; it's a larger size. But the Indian is side chiddush of refuah, which I wouldn't have heard by silsil cotton. I'm hearing by gemi. Boy Rava, nichnas Allah ruach. Because now again we're up to Yutes Amid Aleph, and with 3 lines where it gets wide. So we're speaking about chatzitza regarding the beged of the kohen gadol. So we're going to have a few interesting shilas. 8 to be exact. 8. Okay. Boy Rava, nichnas Allah ruach bebigdai. Mahu. Let's say he's wearing it's let's say the wind enters, and now it lifts up the tunic, the kasainis from his skin, or below the mechlesayim from his skin. So now it's off. It's not al b'sarai anymore. It's not al b'sarai. So al b'sarai being in, you need it mamish on his basar, on his body, v'haleka, and you don't have it, and therefore he couldn't do the avoid in that state. Or if he did the avoid, the guy's worse. If he did the avoid, it would be puzzle. Again, you're telling me it'd be puzzle. If he's not wearing begadim, it'll be puzzle. So that's an interesting shaila. You get a wind in the base of Mikdash. If the clothing gets taken off the skin, would it be puzzle or not? Or maybe it's normal in other words, that's a normal way to wearing it. And if it gets a little lifted up, it gets lifted up. That's the first shaila. Second shaila. Kina mahu shetachsais, a louse. Person has a louse on his body. Mesa loiti boil of the body chaytza. If it's dead, it's certainly wide. It's chatzitza. Chayamai. Mi amin and kivin the asa v'ozla revisa he. Since it could walk, it's normal. It's not considered like living there, and therefore it's not a chatzitza like chaytza. Idilma kivin the kapital laha. Since a person will be makbid on having a louse on his body, chaytza. A second shaila. Third shaila. Afa maushi yachatz shmutz. You have dirt. So it's afa vade chayitz. What are you talking about? Afa vade is chayitz, right? It's vade going to be a chatzitza. Ela avak afa mahu. What about if you get the dust? Like you just got a film, a dust of shmutz. Mamish the shmutz. What's the din? Again, beis hashechi maushi yachatz al b'sarai. What's the shiloh at beis hashechi? If you look at Rashi, right before it gets white, beis hashechi maushi yachatz. Arvi beis hashechi, the ear space of the beis hashechi, kagoin, but is royosav shel chaluka. This area, guys, over here, shu rochav, because it's wide. The inay nageya beis hashechi, it doesn't touch this area. Maushi yachatz, right? What's the din over here? It's sershiu, but is royosav the chukim v'noigim b'bas. In other words, maybe it has to be like this. Maybe that's to be like this. You wear your beged, right? There's always space over here. So we want to know, is that considered al basara or not? Was that, chatzitza or not? That's the Shiloh of Besa Shechi. Hichnis yada l'teichekai. If he puts his hands into his mahu, gufay michayitz, does his body himself a chatzitza? Like, okay, another Shiloh. Nimu mahu shetachitz. What about it here? Nima vade chaytza. Here vades chayitz. El nima mududelas mahu. What happens if you have from the beged itself, guys? You have a thread that's connected to the beged. What's the din? I touch nima is the here. It's a thread. Okay. Boy mar baravashi. Yatsa sa'oroi bebigdoi mahu. Let's say his here goes into the beged mahu. Sa'oroi kegufoi dummy. It's like a guf dummy and it's not a chitzitza. I love keguf dummy and it's a chitzitza. Boy Rav Zeret. Tefillin mahu shiachutza. Now, what's this shaila? Is tefillin a chatzitza or not? Now, what does that mean? So there's two tefillins, guys. It's tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh. Okay, what does Rashi say? 3 lines down, guys. Very important, Rashi. 3 lines down where it gets wide. Ma'u sheyechutzu l'mahave yita begadim. Guys, Rashi's not learning that what? It's a chatzitza. Rashi's learning it'll be another beged. Rashi's learning it'll be another beged. You hear the way he's learning? Very short Rashi. Okay, let's see the Taisus, guys. The last Taisus on the page. Tefillin Maushe Yechutzu. What's the din of tefillin being what? A chatzitza. Pirish bekuntris. L'mahave yita begodim. Says Taisus Yeshaloi Mekain. It's not possible. The Omar limud oruch that tefillin chetzetzes. That it's a limud oruch that tefillin is chatzitza. Ubeshel yad ayri. Speaking about the tefillin shel yad. We're going to see that tefillin shel roish is not a chatzitza. I feel the roish nami. I feel the roish also should be a chatzitza. So Taisus says it's as chatzitza. So Taisus wants to go ahead and disprove Rashi. Rashi says it's yiter begadim, and Taisus says if it's yiter begadim, then why should the shaila only be limited to tefillin shel roish? It should be limited. It should be extended to tefillin shel yad. It should be extended to tefillin shel roish. Because once you're wearing it, it's extra. Bishleim, if you're going to tell me that it's a din chatzitza, umichna sebad yel b'sarai. So when you wear tefillin shel yad, it's being mafsik between the beged and the tefillin.
There's enough room. There's enough room to where's the hat?
Yes, there's
enough room for the shel rosh. Obviously.
Yeah, we're going to see that. It's a good point. We're going to see that. Yes. We saw a Gemara. There's enough room for two. We said the real. There's people who wear you ever see a little. They have little tefillin. They wear the Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam simultaneously. They wear Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam simultaneously. So in other words, there is a place on your head for the makom tefillin for 2 button. Okay, so but I just wanted to varvon the shaila, the machloikis Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam and Tosfos vis-a-vis what the shaila is over here. Rashi is telling us it's yita begadim. Okay, back in the Gemara. Tefillah Moshe Yechutzu. I'll leave it the man that Amad Laila loves man tefillin who, according to my Yamad, that Laila is not this man of tefillin. Laiti boilach. It's not a shayla. Kivin de Laila chayitzi. Yoimami chayitzi. In other words, just like it's extra at night, it's not the time to wear it. So if you wear it, it's going to be considered extra. Kiti boilach man Yamad Laila is man tefillin who. That Zaila is it's not extra. It's normal to wear it at night. I'm learning the way Rashi is learning. My mitzvah de gufa chayitza. A mitzvah in the body is mechayitz, and therefore it's why? Because it's an extra. It's considered an extra beged. I like chayitz. Now yigalgal milsa. This matter, the shaila of tefillin being chatzitza, was rolling around the base medrash. Umata lekamei the Rabbi Ami, and it came from the Rabbi Ami. Amalei Talmud Aruchu biyadenu tefillin chaytzetzes. That the tefillin shel roish is chaytzetzes. Okay, I don't know why I said tefillin shel roish. I guess that's what Tosfos said. But tefillin is considered. I guess tefillin shel yad is chatzitza. Meisavei kohanim b'avodasam. Leviim b'duchonam, Yisrael b'ma'amadam, Peturim min atfila u'min atfilin, my lav imanicha einach etzetzes. They say the pata from tefillin, right? Obviously it must be b'kahuna where they're dressed up. So you see that why it's not a chatzitza. Says Gemara loy imanichem chetzetzes. Yihachi Peturim. It shouldn't say the pata. Asur mi boys shei asa. Says Gemara kivin dek Leviim b'Yisraelim delimasnelei asa. Since it's speaking about Leviim b'Yisrael that you couldn't have learned asa. You couldn't have learned asa. So therefore, you know, they're not something for the Kohen Itzasa. Shmachi Tana Peturim. I Tanya Nicha Ena Chetzetzes. I said if you do wear it's not Chetzetzes. So as we spoke out, like Hasha, Had the Yad, when it's a Chatzitza, Tefillin Shel Yad. Had the Rosh, right? And that's Tefillin Mat. When it's not a Chatzitza, that's the Tefillin Shel Rosh. That's the Tefillin Shel Rosh. For the Gemara, Maishna the Yad, the Chsiv, Yilbash al Besarai, Shleidov Chaitzis Beinoy Besarai. The Rosh Nami Ksiv, the sometimes it's Nefes al Roshai, and that's this what Heshi Bavron, that what you should place the mitznefes on his head. So mashma that if the just like the tefillin shel yad will be a chatzitza between it and the clothing, so too the tefillin shel rosh will be a chatzitza between his head and the hat. Says Gemara, Tana Sarah Nira, being tzitzim mitznefes. Here it was seen between the tzitzim mitznefes on the days. Here it was seen between the tzitzim and the mitznefes. Shesam and nichem tefillin. There you put on mat the tefillin. So the kohen gadol wore it between the tzitzim mitznefes. So you see hesh that there was a spot, right? And memela, since there's a spot, there's no chatzitza. Spot is no chatzitza. Okay, so we're going along again. We're going along. The parak is telling us all the things that are asa people who do it with machal the avoda. We learned zar einin tful yoim, and now we did mechusa begadim, and we did shalei rochatz yadayim v'raglayim. We did that as well. Again, we saw yesterday me and Yehuda from Chuka, right? And I assume that everyone listened to the shir today. Steve got it out pretty early, yes? Okay, and yeah, I'm on his case. Now Mechusa Kippurim. Again, just to reiterate, Mechusa Kippurim is a person who is not totally able to eat kachim until he brings his kapara, until he brings his carbon. Predominantly, it's people who are that as tuma yoytza migufay. A yeledes is Mechusa Kippurim. A zav is Mechusa Kippurim. A mitzayr is Mechusa Kippurim. That all of these that had tuma yoytza migufay, in order to go ahead and eat kachim, they'd have to go ahead and go through, bring their carbon. Until then, they could eat truma after they go to the mikvah, after it's full yom, but they were not able to go ahead and eat kachim until they bring their kapara. If a kohen is Mechusa Kippurim and does the avodah, it will be pasul. It will be pasul. So it's going on Mechusa Kippurim minalam. So Amar Rav Huna, Amar Kra, the pasuk says, "V'chipra la'akayim v'tahera, tahera mechal shehi tameya." You can write that she. The kohen is going ahead, and this is speaking about yoledes. This is speaking about yoledes. And after he brings it, it says she'll be tahar. Mashma before he brings it, she's considered tameya, and a tamei can't do the avodah. Notice we're extrapolating the halacha from a woman. But you see that you can't do the avodah because you will be tamei. As I just mentioned, that you learn chuka from mechusa begadim, and we learn shtuye yayin from that as well. Tan Rabbanan, kohen gadol shlei taval. A kohen gadol didn't go to the mikvah. Ushlei kiddush bein beged lebeged. Okay, we just had yesterday. We went through the avodah of the kohen gadol Yom Kippur. 5 times the kohen gadol changed his clothing between what? Between big day lovin and big day zahav. And each time he'd have to wash his hands, and then you have to go ahead and go to the mikvah and wash his hands. What happens if he doesn't? So kohen gadol shaloi taval, he didn't go to the mikvah between changes of clothing. Ushaloi kiddush bein beged lebeged, or he wasn't mekadosh his hands. Right? They put the tzlicha shalzav. And then he was ahead kiddush yadayim raglayim. Uben avodah lavodah v'avid avodas kshera. Nonetheless, his avodah would be kasha. So on the subject of our Mishnah that a kohen does not wash his hands is pasul. Be aware the kohen on Yom Kippur between the avodas and Yom Kippur. However, don't leave your seats yet, guys. Kiddush yadav raglav shachris for aved avodas psula. A kohen hedyet or a kohen gadol that does not go ahead and do the initial washing, it would be pasul. So here we're speaking over here. When the Mishnah says that it's pasul, what are we discussing? We're discussing the initial washing of the hands. So they wake up in the morning, they go to the mikvah, we're going to wash the hands to go ahead and do the avodah. If they don't do it, they passes the avodah. The kohen gadol Yom Kippur already previously has washed his hands initially, but anything under the 5 during the day, that would not pass the avodah. Amr Ravasi Rabbi Yochanan Michti. Chamesh tefillos v'asar kiddushim deraisa. These halachas of chamesh tefillos and 10 kiddushim are deraisa. V'chuka ksiv b'hu, and it says chuka. And when it says chuka, it's la'akvay, it's to be ma'akiv. So says Ravasi to Rabbi Yochanan, how can you say that the Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur, if he misses a tefillah or rachatz yadayim raglayim bein avoida la'avoida, bein chalifas of the clothing, how could you say that it's not mechalal after all? It seems to be that they're written in the Torah. It says chuka in the parsha. Chuka is a lashon of azay dav zayin, right, Kenny? Azay dav zayin. That's the way it's got to be.
So pointing out that it is the day after Yom Kippur.
Yes, absolutely. You can't make this stuff up, right? Okay. Now, Amalei Omakra. So this is the question that Rav Asi asked Rabbi Yochanan. What did Rav Yochanan answer? He said, K'soinus bat kodesh yilbash, u'michlesei bat yel b'saroi, u'ba'avnei bat yachkar, u'mnesevetz bat yitznaif, bigdei kodesh heim, v'rachatz v'mayim es b'sari, u'levesham. And the last word of the pasuk, u'levesham. Levisha ma'akeves, it's the wearing of the clothing that's ma'akiv, ve'in dava acha ma'akiv. So this is the teretz that Rabbi Yochanan gave Rav Asi. So you want to know why the Kohen Gadol it's not ma'akiv the washing? Because in fact, what? It's the clothing that makes the man, so to say, right? So he's wearing the clothing. So it's Savu Panov. So Rav Asi's face lit up. Right, his face lit up. He thought this was Rashi says, Savu Panov Shal Rav Asi, Mifnesha Simcha, Kesava Tam Hagan Shama. He heard that Rabbi Yochanan told him a great pshat. So Amalei, Rabbi Yochanan said to him, Vav A'ufsa Kasavil L'cha. I wrote you a Vav on a log. Guys, picture a log that has crevices, right? And you make a vav. So what it ends up? It ends up like what's little dots, and then it's like little yuds because you're gonna have the crevices breaking up. In other words, I gave you a teretz, but it's not gonna get the teretz. Because in other words, why is not a good teretz? Because the first one is puzzle. If you're telling me clothing makes the man, right? So the first one also, he's going to go ahead and wears clothing. But in the same breath that you told me in the first part, it's not ma'akiv, you told me, but the first one is. So therefore, Sir Yochanan says, my teretz is not a good teretz, right? Because the first one is not. I was wearing the begadim. If it's wearing the begadim levesham, it should be a problem. But it is a problem. So he says, I gave you a vav afusya, I gave you this teretz. That's not a good teretz. So don't your face shouldn't shine. It's not. They told him, not so fast. Because if so, that it's the clothing that makes the man, that safran nami, in the morning as well, it should be good. So again, we don't have a teretz. Amachizki amakra. Okay, now Chizki is going to come with a pasuk. Amachizki amakra. Says Chizki is a pasuk. V'hoisel lehem, chayk oilam, loi ulezaroi, l'dairoi sam, dava ha'ma'akiv bizaroi, ma'akiv boy. Anything that's ma'akiv in the children of the Kohen Gadol, of Aaron, ma'akiv boy. Dava she'ena ma'akiv bizaroi, ein ma'akiv boy. So let's see Rashi. This is regarding kiddush, right? In other words, there's many things that the Kohen does. So Rashi is just pointing out that this pasuk is regarding the actual washing of the hands and feet. Bizarrei, b'kahanim hedyotim, dahainu kiddush shebeshas knisa shenoig b'chol kahanim ma'akva ba'arein b'yom kippurim the chukah ksiv. So in other words, here he wants to give a teretz. Chizkiah says, what's ma'akiv for Aaron? Anything that's ma'akiv for his children. What's ma'akiv for his children? The initial washing. Only the initial washing. But the other 5 is not with his children. Memela, it's kosher. Again, says the lashon of the pasuk. V'hoisa lahem, the act of kiddush, chayk olam, loy to Aaron ulizaroi l'dayroi sam. What's that? The first kiddush. So it's ma'akiv for his kids. It's ma'akiv for him. But all the other 5 don't exist by his kids. Memela, it's not ma'akiv. That's the Chizkiah's teretz. Rabbi Yonasan Amar. Rabbi Yonasan gives a different teretz. Amar mehacha. The pasuk says, "V'rachatzu mimenu Moshe v'Aaron banav es yedayim ves raglayim." And Moshe and Aaron and his sons, right? They spoke. They washed their hands. They washed their hands and their feet. That's what it says. So you have Moshe, Aaron, banav. Dava ha'ma'akiv v'banav. Anything that's ma'akiv in his children, ma'akiv boy. Dava she'enu ma'akiv banav, ein ma'akiv boy. So it's the same limud, but from different psukim. It's the same limud from different psukim. If it's ma'akiv the kohen hedyet, it's ma'akiv Aaron. If it's not ma'akiv the kohen hedyet, it's not ma'akiv Aaron. And therefore the five that exist only by Aaron are not ma'akiv. But the first one that exists by all of them is ma'akiv. So the first pasuk was speaking about Aaron and his sons, and the next one was speaking about Moshe and Aaron and his sons. Okay, Rabbi Yonasan, my time Chizkiah. What did he not like about Chizkiah's pasuk? He didn't like Chizkiah's v'hoysalhem l'chukolam. He didn't like it. So Amalach hachud l'doirusu d'chsev. That pasuk was speaking about l'doirus, future generations. It's not. It's telling us that this will be noyig for future generations, but not to learn from it. The idach and Rabbi Chizkiah. My time Elayama Mehai. Why didn't he like Rabbi Yonasan's pasuk of Moshe? He said, Rabbi Chanina, because he needs Rabbi Moshe's pasuk, the pasuk of Moshe, for the limit of Rabbi Yosef Chanina, so he can't use it to teach me the din of the first one being Ma'akiv. The Amar of Yosef Rabbi Chanina, Kol Kiyar, Shein Bo Kedei Lakadesh, Arba Kahanim, any Kiyar, any the kli that was used to wash, that could not contain water, enough water for 4 Kahanim, Ein Mekachim, but you can't use. Shenemar, V'rachatz Mimenu, Moshe is 1, Aaron is 2, Ubanav is 3 and 4, because a banav is plural. So since he has it for that, he can't use it to teach me the din of what of the first. So again, this is the halacha that tefillah kiddush yadayim by the 5 of on Yom Kippur. The first one that the Kohen Gadol does would be ma'akiv. He does, guys, before he does the Vayda Yom Kippur, he's going to bring the Karban Tamid, right? Karban Tamid is going to be wearing Big Deish Zov. He's going to go ahead and be Mekadesh. If he wouldn't do that, the Vayda would be Meschala. Why? Because the same halacha would apply by Kohen Hedyet. But since the other 5 things, washings and tefillas, did not apply by the Kohen Hedyet, therefore it's not ma'akiv. Okay, again, this is the digression, certainly from Zevachim, but it's all digressing within the Mechusa Begadim, and we digress Mechusa Begadim, we're discussing what Kohen Gadol washing his hands. Tanrabanan. Ketzad mitzvahs kiddush. How exactly did they do kiddush? How exactly did they do kiddush yadayim v'raglayim? How is that done? Okay. Meniach yodai hayemonis al gabe ragla hayemonis. He put his right hand on his right foot. V'yodai hasmolis al gabe ragla hasmolis, and his left hand on his left foot. He would go ahead and do that. Umekadesh, that's the Chachamim. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, meniach shtei yodav zu al gab zu, the al gabe shtei raglov al gabe zu. So guys, he put his hands like this, and he put one foot on top of the other foot, and he'd be standing on one foot. Okay? Picture that. Picture that. So either he stuck his right hand on his right foot, his left hand on his left foot, or he put hand on hand or foot on foot. Now, if you put hand on hand and foot on foot, you said the problem. Amaloi, the Chachamim told Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, hiflakta, right? What are you're giving a person something that they can't do. It's Yev Shalasses Kain. It's not Yev Shalasses Kain. It's not possible to do that. So Shapa Kamle, this balancing act is not possible. So Rabbi Yosef, right? The Chaver Messiah, he's standing with his foot on the other foot, and his friend will hold him up. My binaya, what's the machlokes between the Chachamim who said right hand, right foot, left hand, left foot, and Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda who said hand, hand, foot, foot? What's the machlokes? Rabbi amidim in atzad ikabinayu. The machlokes is standing if you can stand without help. like the first Tana, if you can stand with the help, that's not Amida. In other words, that's it's like considered sitting because you won't be able to do it. Like Rabbi Yehuda, as long as I can be supported, I'm okay. I'm Rabbi Amida outside, it could be Nayu. Amalei Rav Sama Bered Rav Ashi Ravina, Velesev Mesev El Kadesh. Why do you have to go ahead and stand? Why don't you go ahead and just why don't you just go ahead and sit down? So Makra, the pasuk says l'sharesh. The pasuk says Oibegishtam el mizbeach l'sharesh, to serve. And v'sheirus is mu'omidhu. And sheirus is dafka when you're standing. Sheirus is dafka when you're standing. So therefore, it will not be possible. Tanabana. Kiddush yadav ragla bayoim ain't sarf l'kaddish b'layla. If you do it at during the day, you don't have to do it at night. If you know it's extended to the night, you don't have to do it b'layla. But if you did it at night, sarf l'kaddish b'yoim, you'd have to go ahead and redo it in the morning. In other words, even if you're working straight through, you'd have to go ahead and redo it. Dir Rebbe, Shei Rebbe Omer, Lina ma'eles b'kiddush yadayim raglayim. Lina, there's a din of lina, of leaving overnight. So if you washed your hands in the evening and now it's the morning, there'll be a din of lina on your hands, and therefore you'd have to wash again. There is no din of lina, and memela, if you wash your hands at night, you can go straight through in the morning, and you wouldn't have to wash again. Tanya Yidach, another brisa. He was standing and be makriv in the mizbeach the whole night. When it comes to the morning, toyin kiddush yadayim raglayim. Divrei Rebbe. These are the words of Rebbe. Since he began at the beginning of the avodah, even if you go straight through for 10 days, you don't have to, right? But tzricha, you have to tell me both. The first brisa, Rebbe, the pasuk le me'avodah la'avodah. In other words, first one was speaking about just going from day to night, but you do separate avodas. But the second one, where you're going straight to the avodah, maybe since it's a simultaneous avodah, Rebbe would be moida that you don't have to wash your hands. That you don't have to wash your hands. The second case, because since you're doing one avodah straight, then you don't have to wash your hands. But initially, just going from day to night to day, so tzricha, you have to tell me both. Okay, we'll stop over here.